There we are, 7:01. We'll give it another minute or two here, and then we will get started. Excuse me. There we go. All right, we are coming up on 7:03 in about 15 seconds here. Let me just shuffle around a couple more papers on my desk. All right, I want that one on top, and that one in the shredder. I don't know. I just got a whole bunch of readings on my microphone. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, you're good, Chuck.
All righty. Thank you, Joey. All right. It is 7:03. We might as well get started here. I have it's called the Wacom tablet with mice or pen type things, and both my mice are bad. I have two of them, and when I try and single click, it double clicks and it makes my screen jump around. So bear with me while I do this. All right, now I have the right document, and there it is jumping around again. All right, this is the this is the South Carolina Normal Cannabis Conversation. I'd like to welcome everybody. We'll start with our disclaimer that all of our meetings are an environment of education and awareness and are not an open market for the sale, purchase, or distribution of cannabis. We do not encourage or condone illegal behavior of any kind. All right, now I can go ahead and close that and it won't jump around on me anymore. Drag that one there. All right. As I mentioned a moment ago, welcome everybody here that's here with me on the Zoom call. Welcome that anybody that may be watching us live streamed on our YouTube channel, and also welcome anybody that might be viewing on YouTube at a later date. Mentioning YouTube, I do want you to know that during the live stream, we are not monitoring the comments. So if you do have any comments, questions, concerns, you can leave them down below in the comment section. We will visit the comment section in a couple of days and we will address your comments, questions, or concerns to the best of our ability. Um, Geez, where are we? Where are we? Not a whole lot to be discussing lately with the end of the legislative session in the end of May. So now we're sort of in the off season, I guess we'll call it. Interesting stuff, real quick politically, before we get into the main topic for this evening, which is about returning to live event type things. Um, is I have been seeing that there's a number of different people announcing their candidacy. I think I've seen at least three now announce candidacy for um, running against McDisaster as a governor. Three Democrats, should I say. Um, so it's interesting because we're still a little while away from that. I believe that election will be next November 2022. But we'll have a primary in May to see which one of those actually will still be a candidate by the time the primaries come around. And then they'll be whittled down to one candidate for the general election. And I'm assuming that McMaster is going to be running. I don't know. I don't even know how long he's been in office. Well, actually, yeah, I do. It's since he replaced Nikki. So anyway, um, for what it's worth, we do have an election in South Carolina for governor in 2022. Cross your fingers, cross your toes. Let's hope we can get a cannabis law reform friendly legislator in that governor position. Uh, that's all I got state level really at the moment. There's nothing else, like I say, going on. Federal level, real quick, we'll touch on it. I believe I mentioned last week. Well, actually, a lot of our conversation last week was the MORE Act was reintroduced in the House at the federal level. I'm still waiting. I haven't seen anything yet on the Senate version, which we still don't even know a name of. It won't be the MORE Act anymore because now there's a third primary sponsor on it, or different primary sponsors. Not sure how that all works. But they're still working on the name, still working on some of the details. Um, it's one of those things like I'm expecting any day. What happens a lot is after either I end a meeting like this one on a Wednesday, I will see something later that night or the following day. So let's cross our fingers. We hear something tomorrow. Um, it just seems to be the way it happens for me sometimes. Is I want to talk about it now, and it happens tomorrow. So we'll see. It might happen tomorrow. Um, and that's really all I have to talk about at federal level. What we want to talk about is it looks like, well, this past week, I believe it was, McMaster said that he is relieving or saying we're out of emergency status with the pandemic. You can now freely wander about with or without masks. I think CDC guidelines, if I'm correct, still says you can go out and about without your mask if you've been fully vaccinated. I think is their fully so if you haven't vaccinated, they may, I think, still think for your safety you may want to wear a mask when you're out and about or when you're in contact with other folks. um, Uh, I haven't really been watching a whole lot as far as the numbers in South Carolina go. I don't believe they've like been spiking or anything in the past few days or weeks since since everything's been sort of relaxed. Um, so it looks like a lot of events are starting up again. We're seeing farmers markets in downtown Charleston being started again. Um, I'm not sure what some of the other towns are doing, but I'm assuming they're pretty much following suit. Um, my wife and I happened to go to hang on, let me get it right. Coastal Carolina Flea Market over this past weekend. Apparently, it's the largest flea market in South Carolina. Um, there was a fair number of people. Some had masks, some didn't. Um, so I'm assuming for live in-person meetings and events, as long as we're kind of following CDC guidelines, we're good to go on having events. Um, any thoughts, questions, comments about any of that? Josh says he doesn't think McMaster's running, which means they're probably going to have to, um, be a primary for both sides. Interesting. We'll have to watch and see what happens. Because yeah, if he's not running, I haven't heard that yet. But thank you. I'll have to look into that now. Appreciate it. Um, yeah, it's from somebody not born in South Carolina. Watching South Carolina elections to me is interesting, I guess to say the least. Uh, Although they weren't much different in Pennsylvania, where I was from, anyhow. So you know, but it, they have moved ahead. They have moved ahead with their legalization of medical use. It's been a couple of years now. Their governor and their lieutenant governor are supporting moving recreational forward. Their lieutenant governor apparently has been, the talk of the town because he hangs marijuana flags out of his office window. So it's peeing off the opposition, and they're trying to pass laws that you can't hang these flags out your window of the state house. Uh, and it all started, if you ask me, in Pennsylvania. Maybe not necessarily. Well, it did. It started with decriminalization at the municipal level because Pennsylvania, again, like South Carolina, does not have the option to do a state level ballot initiative. Um, and so there was groups around Pennsylvania started doing exactly what I want us to do here in South Carolina is take our petitions out, get physical signatures from actual residents that are registered voters, um, to decriminalize municipally. We do have uh, some petitions already drafted for here in the Charleston area, and I'm sorry, I'm checking comments here. I saw Joey said if he doesn't run, it'll be a miracle. Um, I, I don't know if an alternative option on the Republican side is going to be a whole lot better for our cause anyway. Um, but yes, definitely McMaster is so influenced by Sled and Chief Keel, um, and I believe that that position is also appointed. There goes stuff jumping. Trying to try and use my mouse. So maybe with a new um, governor, we'll get a new head of Sled. Um, Boy, wouldn't that be a miracle? There would be a miracle. No, he came in after Nikki because he was lieutenant governor, if I remember correctly. Is that right? Um, Anyhow, um, correct. Cool. Okay. Um, yeah, and he just has such an anti-marijuana background from the 70s and 80s during the Reagan administration, during his U.S. attorney days. Um, I don't see him coming around anytime during the rest of his term, um, which will be sad because really my fear is if they do even manage to get this Compassionate Care Act out of the Senate, passed out of the Senate and through the House, uh, he might not sign it. And if he doesn't sign it, then you have to try to have what is it, 60% or 2/3 of the legislators to override him. You have to have a pretty hefty vote to override him. And I know some people say that they think they have the votes to override him, but I'm not even sure they have enough votes to move it that far, my opinion. Um, So anyway, talking about kind of getting out events. I mean, there's a couple of different things we could do. I think we can. What we've done a lot in the past, or more so in the past, is we have a 10 by 10 pop up. We have a little, couple of folding tables. We have a couple of folding chairs, and we take these things out and we've set them up at. Uh, it took us a while actually. Set them up at some different local farmers markets. Matter of fact, we're still sort of fighting with the city of Charleston to get up set up at the downtown official Charleston Farmers Market, uh, and we haven't tried now since the pandemic has ended. And boy, I was there a couple weeks ago, weekends ago. I don't know, it wasn't this past. I think it was two, and it looked like there were enough spaces um, to actually try and get back out, but I'm not sure. Let me kind of scroll and see if I can watch what's being chatted on. Yeah, I've seen a lot about North Carolina. I haven't really been following it as closely as I should, being our northern neighbor there. Uh, but uh, with that July 1st date looming, they're going to have a neighbor right next door with full recreational use. Um, what are they going to do? Put barbed wire and razor wire up at the border and search everybody? Actually, I did see some other legislation being posted there. Let me real quick go see if I can find it. I knew I saw some House Bill HB 617. It's on the table. Support by signing petitions. I don't know exactly what their House Bill 617 is, so I'm going to click open on that one a little bit. As far as doing in-person events, now the one thing I'm apprehensive about, and I'll ask for everybody's input on it, but our monthly meetings and like our cannabis conversations like this, um, I took our monthly meetings from being in person, out and about type meetings to Zoom meetings in January of 2019, about a year before um, everybody else kind of moved in that direction when the pandemic was announced in. When did they actually officially announce? Late February, early March of 2020, something like that. Okay, House Bill 617. This is a North Carolina House bill. Um, an act to legalize and regulate the sale, possession, and use of cannabis in North Carolina. There you go. It doesn't even talk about medical. It's sale, possession, and use of cannabis in North Carolina. I'll go ahead and share the link here for anybody that I don't think this has a whole bunch of tags on it, but let me check. Ah, it did. Okay. Tracking tags. For anybody interested in seeing what they're doing in North Carolina on this particular House bill, this was dated April 21st, but the post I saw yesterday, glad to see it's on the table. Support by signing petitions. Let your senators and representatives know. Um, I don't know if that means it's moved forward in committee or something like that, but it's on the table in North Carolina. I don't. I hate to admit, but what happens when North Carolina goes? What are they going to scramble in South Carolina? Um, th-
They'll have to. They will have to.
well, that's where I see freaking McMaster and Keel. I say, just build a wall. Build, build a wall. We're gonna keep those marijuana heads away from us. I'm sorry. Something along those lines. I could see him like, and the reason I guess I say that is just because the fact that since between 2016 and 2018, they more than doubled the marijuana possession arrest in this state, from less than 16,000 to over 34,000. Um, per year. I still haven't seen the 2019, and I'm betting the 2020 numbers are out by now, or should be soon. Um, but that just shows to me the mindset of law enforcement, while the rest of the country and the Justice Department in South Carolina, anyway, while the rest of the country, or large portions of the country, are legalizing for medical use or decriminalizing, or even adult recreational legalization. South Carolina is stepping up their possession arrests and filling the prisons with even more people, for simple possession. I've had people tell me stories where they've been arrested for a seed. They've done jail time for the stained paper from a roach. Nothing left in it. It was just a paper, and it was stained, and it tested positive, and they did 30 days in jail. Um, this is South Carolina. Oh. So anyway, it's time, I think, to start getting back out. I don't like the idea necessarily of taking our meetings out, because I like the controlled environment of the Zoom meetings, and I like the fact that the Zoom meetings allow people to participate in our meetings from anywhere in the state, or even being able to invite in guests and stuff like that from other states if they wanted to participate. Uh, uh, so I think it's more, as we used to do back pre 2020. We had some social gatherings. Um, and let me just backpedal a little bit on meetings. Um, I don't know if any of you recall our April meeting. Um, it happened to fall, I think, on 420, if I remember correctly. It was a monthly meeting, not our Wednesday meeting, and we also went to the Celtic Knot in Somerville, Celtic Knot Pub. It's an Irish pub type setting in Somerville, South Carolina. And excuse me, when we first got there, it was kind of quiet. There were some people lined up at the bar. Matter of fact, the owners were, I think, looked like they were. Now that I saw the end of it later on, I think they were sort of pre-rush resting a little bit, between prepping and then getting things ready for the evening. Um, and we picked a little spot for us to sort of set up with some couches. Some couple of other board members and showed up, and a couple of other supporters showed up, and I took along my iPad, thinking, well, I can live stream the meeting from Zoom, right from wherever we, from where we were. And at first, I'm going to say for the first couple of minutes, maybe it seemed to be working okay. Um, but technically, it really did not work well. Um, as we were starting the meeting, at 7 o'clock, the place was filling up. We sort of expected a little bit more of a dinner rush, but it seemed to be to me kind of an after dinner rush or something like that. But the place started filling up. Tables right next to us, and not far from us, started getting full. Um, and the noise levels with that started increasing. And even as we were doing the meetings in the past, when we were doing face-to-face meetings, that was always one of our biggest issues. Is even trying to have a meeting with just a group of people in a bar or a restaurant that happens to have background music, that doesn't have a private separate room that you can sort of um, uh, isolate out a lot of the crowds. Because uh, good example, probably one of the best places we ever did, as far as in-person meetings and attendance overall, was T-Bone's Grill and Grill in the West Ashley area of Charleston. Not the downtown one near Market Street, but they had sort of an interesting setup where you walk in the front doors, and as you turned and looked into into the room or into the space, off to the right was their bar, and that had a little bit of a division, and I think maybe even a step down into a center area where there were some tables and booths. Um, Off to the right, there was a lower area of tables and booths, regular area, but then there was a raised area off to the left, again with a bunch of tables. And that was a space that we ended up getting assigned to originally. And it worked out pretty well for us because we could rearrange the tables a little bit. We could line us up as a sort of a conference table. We've had, I think, close to 20 people at meetings there. Um, but our little raised area was not isolated enough that the people just down below that were dining right next to us um, ended up becoming part of our meeting, whether they wanted to or not. While they're trying to maybe have a private conversation over dinner, I'm trying to talk to a table full of people, and um, mind you, some of them were rather enjoyed the meetings and stuff like that. But it was challenging to separate ourselves from the general public in those type of situations. Another good example, we had another, small meeting actually at uh, one of the local craft breweries. And the same kind of thing. They had a food truck in, they had the general public there. And so trying to broadcast from that kind of situation, oh man, two of them. Um, Makes it really a challenge to be able to talk to a group. The other thing with that particular event that we did on 420 is I don't have a pair of like headsets for my iPad. I think I had headphones in with like a little mic on the wire. Um, but again, I don't think it really isolated my hearing well enough or my sound well enough for viewers. I think Joey's kind of mentioning, yeah, it didn't work out. I remember he just couldn't hear. We were breaking up. And that was the other thing too. I don't know. We were running off of their Wi-Fi network, and we weren't getting. I think we're getting spotty coverage as far as our signal. And doing this sound and video really does take a bit of bandwidth. And you never know at a bar how many people might be sitting at the bar or table just on their phone sharing that same bandwidth with you. Uh, so, as far as official meetings, yeah, I'd say no. Oh, and there's one third thing about that I really love about the Zoom. technically, as an organization, we're supposed to be keeping minutes of our meetings. Um, that was a lot more challenging when we were out. As a matter of fact, my agenda list ended up kind of getting maybe some extra notes during the evening, and those ended up becoming our minutes. A lot of times, where now with the Zoom meetings, these things are recorded. They're saved to my hard drive. They're saved to YouTube. We can go back and review them, and if at any time we need to, or people that missed them can join in and see them later. Um, so it's going to be more type of in-person, face-to-face meeting or events where uh, we're doing activism, whether it is getting out here in Charleston, where we already have the petitions drafted for, and collecting signatures from registered voters, um, moving around the city. That's going to be probably very similar to some of the challenges that I mentioned a couple years back. Just getting the volunteers to get involved in collecting 15,000 signatures here in the city. Um, the other one things again like we used to do is getting out to farm markets, flea markets, but that was more under the concept of, oh, we were a regional organization. We want to sort of reach out in our region here in the Charleston area. Now that we have moved to the state level, we we want to be able to do that. It's just reaching out far enough as our chapters based in the Charleston area. Um, I think probably as we move forward, and some of you may or may not have noted, but on Facebook there is a an upstate South Carolina normal upstate um, page right now. There are some people in the upstate that are interested in getting involved, but we haven't like organized them in a way to start organizing events in the upstate. Um, our plan is to eventually move forward and have a number of areas covered by support like that. Um, Basically, a regional chapter flying under our state umbrella, flying under our 501c4, being able to go out and do some educational events in their area, do fundraising events in their area. Um, And same thing really here with with the Charleston area is unfortunately, my position is supposed to be sort of saying, you know, getting the administrative stuff sort of organized and then getting our volunteers organized and getting our membership, directing all that kind of stuff. That's where that director title kind of comes in. And um, really for a number of years, I've been uh, the guy who takes the tent out and sets the tent up and gets out and hands out the brochure, and I don't mind that, but I just can't, especially with some of my health issues. I can't do it as actively as I was before, and I want to, when we do it, I want to make sure that it's uh, effective, that we're being effective with our time and our dollars, because the setup at these events isn't necessarily free. um, a good example, I think, to it is there was a small farmers market on Folly, and we were actually at that point trying to collect signatures on petitions on Folly. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go ahead every Monday night, be down at Folly. I don't even know, think it was every Monday because they gave me the leeway to do one, not do one. Weather was an effect, had effect on whether there was a market or not. Um, Never did get enough of the signatures on Folly. Again, I think part of that was because the market falls during tourist season, and then they close it during the winter. And the winter really is the time to get signatures on Folly from the residents. I'm not sure of the numbers, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of the numbers are up there bigger than I would anticipate on the owners that actually rent their property during season and they move inland somewhere and live in a place in, Somerville or West Ashley or someplace cheaper because they know they can get, quite a bit for their a block or two away from the ocean property as far as a rental. Um, so you see that happening quite a bit. It makes them harder to find. Although they're registered to vote as residents in Folly, they're not full-time residents in Folly. Probably kind of like collecting signatures and a good example. Like I said, my mother lived in Florida and in Pennsylvania, and she lived in Pennsylvania in the summer, where we were born and raised, and snowbirded through Florida for 20 or 30 years until she finally moved down there permanently. So it's challenging sometimes because although she had residences in both. You can only register to vote in one, and I think she registered in Florida because that's where she was during election time, something like that. Or she wrote in. But anyway, that was her primary. So that's another thing we can actually do at some of these events, especially if we have Wi-Fi available, is getting people to make sure that they're registered, signing them up to register. We can do that through the iPad. Just going to scvotes.org, and they can just punch in their information from from ours, or we can tell them use their own phone and do it. Um, we can remind people if they've moved since last time they registered, they need to re-register because you have to register at your current address or it won't count when they're signing our petitions. Um, so those are some of the things that we will do when we get out to these events. And I don't know, I haven't done it in a while, but we have also just gone out and stood on the side of the road, trying to flag people down to sign our petitions. Um, as long as I guess we're following CDC guidelines, being safe about it, being careful out there, I see no reason for us to start getting out and about. So socially and activism wise, I'm peeking at the time here. I see I've been rambling again now for about half an hour. Um, uh, we've done scheduled things like picnics and bicycle rides and little Christmas holiday gatherings. Um, Geez, we had a beach day scheduled, but that was in just before the pandemic, or right. It was scheduled for after the pandemic was first announced, and that had to be canceled. So, City of Columbia is in Richland County. So, how would that work? As far as petitioning, or as far as
for the
um,
petition.
Uh, for the petitions, I would probably recommend drafting the petition at the city level or instead of at the county level. But the way, for the most part, how it would work is to um, a contact the local county board of voter registration. So again, you could probably get them through scvotes.org and then find out your actually contact info for Richland County. Um, Request from them the number of registered voters in the city of Columbia. So that's within the actual city limits of Columbia. And then when you get that number, let's say it's 100,000, which I believe Columbia and Charleston are real close, and they're both a little over 100,000. Um, Well, actually, the registered voters, their population is a little over 100,000. So their registered number of voters is probably similar as well. And I put that around 100,000. I forget what number I had for Charleston. Um, I may not have even actually requested their specific. But in South Carolina, you've got about 85% voter registration. Um, and So I figured if the number was 120-ish in each of these cities, let's say there's 100,000 rough guesstimate that are registered to vote, and you need 15% of that number of registered voters that are residents of that city or of that municipality to sign your petitions. And they all have to then be valid signatures, because once you collect up all those signatures on those petitions, they then get turned back over to the Board of Voter Registration. They go through them and they confirm and verify each and every one of those are registered voters in the city of Columbia, or again, whatever municipality we're working on. And if we hit the 15%, then that goes forward and gets put on the ballot for the next voting cycle, the next election cycle. I don't know if that goes through, if it just goes through, through them, or if it has. I don't think it has to even go to the city council in any way, um, because it's a ballot issue. We haven't gotten that far with any of them yet, so I might have to get clarified. But that's my understanding that to this point. The other things that I do know are sort of, the one thing I like to remind people of, actually, because I wasn't aware of it originally. But if you are a petition signature collector, you cannot sign your own petition. On the back of each petition pack, there is an affidavit that you're signing that you've witnessed the signatures on your petition. Um, and so you can't sign your own. You would need to sign somebody else's. Um, but that's one of the few restrictions I know. As long as somebody's a registered voter, make sure they write clearly and legibly, because that's again another thing. If the Board of Voter Registration can't read it, they can't verify it. If they can't verify it, it doesn't count. And if you don't get your number, let's say you end up with getting 14% instead of 15%, and you need to go out and get another thousand signatures or whatever the case may be. Um, you can go back and get them. There's no, it's not like all of them are void. You can still go back and get your next thousand. Um, if you've read through the initiative guide that we've shared, I'm going to go find it again real quick and share it. Um, it sort of talks about, don't be real truthful with your volunteers, sort of fib to them about your goal number. Your goal number may be actually 15,000, but tell them it's 30,000. Give them a double the number. And the reason for that is not that you want to fib to them and give them a false information, but there's the guide. Let me get that link open here. I don't think it needed the question mark, but yep, that's the link to the initiative guide. Um, it's not that you want to be dishonest with the volunteers that are collecting signatures and out there, hitting the pavements, or standing on the side of the road flagging and people to sign. It's that there's that many signatures that either aren't legible or are disqualified for one reason or another. You'd rather overshoot than undershoot. I mean, I'd rather tell my volunteers, hey, we're going for 30,000, and we come in and with 25 or 20,000 valid signatures. Woohoo! We blew the doors off it. If the goal number was only 15,000, um, only, I say, that's still to me a huge number. Um, so there's where it starts. Now, I've reached out, and you asked about how to do it for Columbia or Richland and in Richland County. We don't have a petition drafted for Columbia at this point. Our petitions so far have been drafted for us by the Sensible Movement Coalitions, a group out of Ohio. I have touched base with our folks at National Normal to see if they can start drafting them for us. I haven't gotten back, so I do have to follow up, and I will follow up with that this week. As a matter of fact, I'll put that on my notes here. Um, I'd rather keep it in house and not bother these other folks, but if I have to, I'll go back and ask them to draft them. Before we actually start drafting new petitions for new areas, I just want to make sure that we do have a solid core group in that area of the at least 3 or 4 people that are going to get out on the regular and try and gather um, petitions. Um, I gotta admit, even getting 3 or 4 regular people I've seen here in Charleston, that can be a bit of a challenge. Maybe it's just because I'm old and young people don't want to hang with the old guy. I don't know. But anyway, there is. It's a big endeavor, if you ask me, and I think if we can start to um, collaborate with other organizations. Another reason why we're doing this event in January, and I've just finally, my health seems to be getting better. I'm still not sure if my focus is all that great. My wife got these new herbal patches I'm supposed to put on, like a nicotine patch, to help my focus. I says I need a big body size one instead of these little inch by inch. Um, Maybe a hat made of this stuff. I don't know. But I am getting my focus back. I finally gotten to start doing a more outreach on getting participants for the January event, which is again why big part of why we canceled. I just was not functional enough to get that event organized by July. Here we are, dang, a month out of where it would have been. Um, so I think it's to our benefit that we've moved it. But that's another thing why we're pushing um, decriminalization at the municipal level, trying to educate people about it. My plan is to probably print up a bunch of these initiative guides. Uh, I forget how many sheets, about 15 pages. I think I can print them on about double sided 16, yeah, I can 8 sheets or something like that of paper. Um, and hand these out to the ticket holders at the event. To anybody who purchases a ticket, they'll get a copy of the initiative guide. Um, and as you've seen, we've been promoting it um, pretty regularly with both our cannabis conversations and our social media. And it's time to get back to that. So that's again another opportunity for us to do in person, face to face, live activism. Um, So, Josh, if you are interested, if you have some folks you think that you can get a core group together to start doing petitioning, signature collecting in Columbia area, keep me posted on that, and I will follow up with National on getting drafts and or follow up with the folks in Ohio. Um, and in the meantime, I am going to probably look at the calendar in the next week or so here and see if we can just plan a social event somewhere. Um, Going back to meetings, like I say, meetings in person probably not the best option. We were for quite a while holding them at the local public library, and we could get a separate like private conference room. Um, but you know, people like to have a beverage or maybe a little snack, and that was one thing I wanted it to be a little bit more of a social event than just and the library didn't permit that kind of stuff. Um, so that's why we tried the bar stuff. And like I say, then attendance I think suffered a little bit just because of depending on what location we were trying to move them around the community so we could be inclusive. And sometimes we had a better turnout than others, and it just turned out for me to be kind of exhausting. So we went online. Um, but yeah, time to get back at least for some social stuff, not for all of our regular meetings. I'll keep you posted. Um, I've even had some of my board members going, "Hey, let's go back to the uh, Grill and Grill, T-Bone's Grill and Grill." So we may get out for that event in the not too distant future. Keep your eye on our social media or here or our website, and I'll keep you posted. Any questions or comments about or thoughts otherwise on in-person meetings? Getting back to in-person meetings in this, I don't even want to say quite post-COVID era, but we're, I guess, falling into that category. All right. I don't have a whole lot more to talk about it, and geez, me running out of steam in less than an hour, believe it or not. um, I did not hear back yet from Attorney McCoy up in Myrtle Beach. I did see another posting from him recently that I think he's feeling better, but I'm not sure if he's quite out of the hospital because the picture was of him in a hospital bed. Um, so I'll keep you posted on that. And keep your ears and eyes out open. And if you ever have any suggestions on maybe guests that we can have on to talk about different aspects of marijuana law reform, let me know. Email me at normalsouthcarolina@gmail.com. Visit our website at normalsc.org and new scnormal.org. Um, Drop us a line through our social media at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And don't forget to follow us, our channel on YouTube. That's all I got for you tonight, folks. I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday at the monthly meeting for South Carolina Normal, next Wednesday for the South Carolina Normal Cannabis Conversation. And that's it for tonight. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate your time. I look forward to seeing you in person. Have a good night now. Bye bye.